Radovan Karadzic, the man who was the infamous leader of the Bosnian Serbs during the war in Bosnia-Herzegovina. The man who famously warned Bosnia's Muslims that they could be annihilated if they declared independence. The man whose army and orders tried to make that threat a reality over the next 3 years. Two cities bear particular testimony to his brutality: Sarajevo and Srebrenica. At Srebrenica, Karadzic, along with General Mladic, are charged with killing 8,000 men and boys following the fall of the UN's first safe haven. Evidence will be presented at his trial that the killings included well-planned executions, lies, and the bombing of fleeing civilians. Men aged up to 77 down to boys as young as 12 were killed. At Srebrenica, the massacre was carried out over a few days. In Sarajevo, it took place over nearly 4 years. Under siege, the city was pounded with artillery, mortars and sniper fire.
These people have food, no milk for children, no chocolate, no nothing.
Of the more than 12,000 people in the city who died in the random killing, over 1,000 were children. Despite being encircled by Serb forces, having little or no power, and under constant attack, Sarajevo never fell. In this edition of NATO Review, we go back to Sarajevo, the scene of one of the Bosnian War's worst war crimes, to see how those who suffered and those who tried to catch Karadzic reacted to his capture. And we look at what this means for the future and the security of the country and the region. Since surviving the war, Nijara Ahmetašević has been dedicated to investigative journalism, including tracking down Radovan Karadzic.
I was here during the war in Sarajevo. I survived the war, and many of my friends were killed, many of my friends were wounded. I was wounded, many of my family members were badly wounded or killed during the war.
What was her reaction when she heard of Karadzic's arrest?
When Karadzic was arrested, I felt like that's the end of the war, but it's not, unfortunately.
Rafi Grigorian is the Deputy High Representative for Bosnia-Herzegovina. Prior to this, he worked for both NATO and the US government, specialising in the Balkans. He has been described as one of the most dedicated pursuers of Karadzic. How did he feel when he heard the news of Karadzic's arrest?
I felt kind of like when I finished my PhD, although this took a little bit longer. What I expected to be a feeling of relief and elation turned out to be just numbness.
Mention the word Sarajevo to many people in the West and it will conjure up images of a wartime city under siege. But this is a city that wants to move on. This week, for example, is celebrating the Sarajevo Film Festival with visitors from all around the world. So how much does the arrest of Karadzic mean to people in Sarajevo today?
To je zločinac najveći, veći od Hitlera.
Bio sam prije svega jako iznenađen jer sam smatrao da taj lik nikada neće biti uhapšen. Druga reakcija je bila ta da sam shvatio da ipak možda malo postoji pravde na ovome svijetu.
Karadzic is already in The Hague, where he awaits trial by the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia.
You're charged with genocide, punishable under Articles 4.3a, 7.1 and 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal.
Sir Geoffrey Nice was the lead prosecutor in the trial in The Hague of Slobodan Milosevic.
I'm suggesting to the accused through the witness, or to the witness, I don't know who it is, that the total of 93 prisoners is a false and indeed an intentionally false figure.
Does Geoffrey Nice think that if Karadzic's crimes were committed in the region, then his trial should be in the region?
In an ideal world, I would have thought this would have been the ideal place for him to be tried, but maybe it's too early for that to happen. It would have been very good to have had the man tried in the place where the crimes are said to have been committed. For the witnesses to be able to come on a day basis and not to be taken in the alien environment of The Hague.
The tribunal was set up in the first place because the powers in the region were manifestly not doing what they were legally obliged to do. This tribunal was set up in large part to deal with Karadzic and Mladic. And I think if there's to be any sense of assuredness that justice is impartial here, notwithstanding my own personal views on the matter, that the only place you can really expect that at this time would be in The Hague with these international tribunal for these two figures.
One difficulty thrown up by trying Karadzic in The Hague is that many Serbs and Bosnian Serbs still distrust the Hague Tribunal. We went to Pale, Karadzic's base during and after the war, to gauge how people there saw his arrest and forthcoming trial. And already it's very clear that we're in Serbian territory. This is Republika Srpska. The signs are often in the Cyrillic alphabet. There are flags, Serbian flags, hanging from several buildings. And one of the first buildings that we saw here in Radovan Karadzic's adopted town has a very appropriate name. This is the centre of Pale, Karadzic's adopted hometown. Karadzic was arrested in 2008, almost exactly 13 years after he had been indicted by the Hague War Crimes Tribunal. That indictment charged him with genocide, persecutions and killing non-Serbs in attacks on towns throughout Bosnia-Herzegovina. He's also charged with rounding up thousands of non-Serbs into camps where it's alleged that his command killed, tortured, mistreated and sexually assaulted non-Serbs in those camps. Yet for a year after that indictment, in July 1995, he was seen walking and living freely in the centre of this town. Initially, many responses were guarded.
Svi trebaju da odgovaraju pred, bez obzira na naciju, na sve, da odgovaraju za zločin.
But soon we heard some people voicing the loyalty that Karadzic had enjoyed when he lived in the town. Can you tell me if you were happy when you heard that Radovan Karadzic had been arrested?
Loše, to skroz loše. Baš mi nije drago. Baš mi to nije drago.
I'm not happy whatsoever that he has been arrested.
Neka znaju cijeli svijet.
For some, Karadzic's capture is still too sensitive a subject.
Na to pitanje nisam spreman da dam.
Bosnian Serbs' skepticism about the Hague Tribunal doesn't just come from their belief that Slobodan Milosevic did not receive a fair trial. They also point to the Hague's acquittal of Muslims charged with war crimes, such as that of Muslim wartime commander Nasser Oric.
Mr. Oric, would you please stand up? You are found not guilty and therefore acquitted of, under count 1,